Welcome back to The Deep. Okay, I have to say, looking at the stack of papers we have on the desk today, I think we are in for a bit of a wild ride.
I think that's putting it mildly.
Yeah, we're wading into some incredibly turbulent waters here. We're looking at a piece of commentary that is, frankly, scorching earth.
It really is.
It's a critique of modern Hollywood that doesn't just pull no punches it. It effectively takes off the gloves, puts on brass knuckles, and just steps right into the ring.
Scathing might be the understatement of the year. We're doing a deep forensic analysis of a transcript from a video commentary by a content creator named Disparu.
Disparu, right.
And the title alone gives you a sense of the temperature in the room. It's Actors Need to Shut Up to Save Hollywood.
Yeah. Subtlety is clearly not on the menu today. It's direct, it's aggressive, and it seems to be tapping into a very, very specific vein of frustration that's out there.
It is not subtle at all. And our mission today, it isn't to just react to the anger in the piece, because there is a lot of anger there, but to really unpack the mechanics of the argument.
Right.
This is a sharp, critical look at the relationship between celebrity activism, political vocalization, and what the source describes as the economic free fall of the box.
Exactly. And before we dive in, let's just, set the ground rules so everyone is on the same page. We are reporters today. We are looking at this source material, this transcript, and we are analyzing the argument presented within it. We aren't endorsing the insults, and believe me, there are some creative ones in here, or the political stances, but we are going to treat the argument serious to understand this perspective.
Exactly. The source makes some very strong claims about woke culture, about audience psychology. He even gets into evolutionary biology, and of course, the economics of the industry. We are going to explore those arguments impartially. We want to understand, is there a logic behind all the rage? What is the structural argument being made about why movies are failing?
So let's get into the core thesis here, because the creator, Disparu, seems to believe that Hollywood isn't just stumbling. He thinks it's essentially committing suicide.
That is the central premise. That's it in a nutshell. The argument is that the industry is currently producing content that he describes as, and this is his language, unbelievable, unremarkable shit.
His words, not ours.
Right. And at the same time, it's simultaneously destroying its own viability by actively insulting its customer base.
It's the old don't bite the hand that feeds you. But the source is arguing they're doing a lot worse than just biting. It's like they're severing the entire arm and then complaining about the lack of food.
Precisely. And the proposed solution, what he calls the shut up strategy, is quite literal. The source argues that for the industry to even survive, actors need to stop, full stop.
Just stop talking.
Stop the political signaling and return to their primary function, which he defines as being faces for entertainment. The source views actors not as moral lecturers, but, and this really jarring phrase text, as meat.
Whoa. Okay, meat. That feels, that feels incredibly dehumanizing.
It's meant to be provocative for sure. But he does clarify the context. He says, a piece of meat, not a person. The argument is that audiences don't go to the main actor's personality, hear their political current events.
Okay, go for escapism.
They go for escapism. They go for the character. And when the actor steps out from behind the screen and starts lecturing the audience, the whole illusion just breaks.
The spell is broken.
Right. The source contends that the actor's job is to be a vessel for the story, and by asserting their own, superior morality, they break the product. They ruin the experience.
So shut up and act. That's really the core message.
Ideally, yes. And here's where it gets, I think, really in. The source actually finds a surprising ally in this argument. Someone you would absolutely not expect, given the overall tone of the piece.
You're talking about Bill Maher.
I am. Now, to be clear, the source clearly sits on the opposite side of the political spectrum from Bill Maher. He actually at one point refers to Maher as one of the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse.
So not a fan.
No, not a fan, which tells you everything you need to know about their general affinity for one another, but he explicitly agrees with him on this one point. Maher is quoted as saying that if their side, meaning the left, wants to win, Hollywood celebrities need to shut the F up because they aren't helping.
It's that horseshoe theory moment,
right,
where the far ends of the spectrum suddenly meet, right? When you have a critic who clearly despises Bill Maher suddenly saying, you know what, he's right about this one thing, you've hit a real nerve in the culture.
It suggests that the fatigue with celebrity activism is becoming a cross-partisan. The source argues that celebrities have a, quote, 100% success rate on always choosing the side of...
From the perspective of the general audience, he means.
Yes, from the audience's perspective.
Yeah.
So by pushing a morality that directly conflicts with the values of the paying customer, they basically guarantee rejection.
Which leads us directly to the first major pillar of this collapse he outlined. It's this marketing strategy that seems to defy all known laws of economics. I mean, it's almost baffling when you say it out loud.
It really is a paradox. The source identifies what he calls the antagonistic marketing strat.
Let's unpack that, because usually, marketing is about seduction. It's, come here, look at this shiny thing. Please give us your money.
Exactly. Traditional marketing says the customer is always right. Or at
Wow.
the very least, the customer is to be courted. You want them to feel welcome, to feel wanted.
Of course.
But the source highlights this bizarre trend where actors and creators are explicitly telling audiences to go away. They're defining their audience by who shouldn't be there.
It's like gatekeeping 101, but usually you gatekeep to keep a club exclusive and desirable, not to keep customers out of a business that relies on massive volume just to break even.
The source cites Jennifer Lawrence as a prime example of this. There's a quote discussed in the transcript where Lawrence says something like, "I'm not going to speak up politically because no one listens to us anymore."
Which, on the surface, that almost sounds like humility, maybe? Or at least a realization of her limited power, like she's just throwing her hands up in defeat.
That's one interpretation, yeah. The source argues it's actually a profound delusion. He says, no, that isn't true. People do listen to celebrities, and then they're repulsed. The argument is that the audience does hear them, they do see the platform, but because the message is so disconnected from their values, it actively drives people away. It's not that celebrities have zero impact, it's that they have a powerfully negative impact.
So when she says no one listened, the source is basically saying, oh no, we hear you loud and clear. We just really don't like what you're saying.
Exactly. It's acidic to quality, to use the source's exact phrasing. It just corrodes the goodwill of the audience. And then you have the case of John Leguizamo.
Right.
The source brings up a moment where Leguizamo told people, if you don't like it, don't listen, don't watch my movies.
He's throwing down the gauntlet. He's drawing a line in the sand.
It was a challenge, absolutely. And the source decided to test the results of that challenge. And this is a great example of the forensic style of this commentary. He actually went to Leguizamo's IMDb page to look for watched movies, movies that had any significant cultural impact or audience engagement.
Okay, so he did the homework.
Yeah.
And what did he find?
Well, the source describes this process of just scrolling and scrolling. He narrates it, saying, don't watch it, don't, implying that the audience has taken Leguizamo up on his offer.
They're not watching.
They are not watching. The source uses this to argue that Leguizamo simply doesn't have the star power anymore to be issuing these kinds of ultimatums.
It's like a bluff that got called in a huge way. Don't watch me. Okay, we won't. And then the career just sort of evaporates. That's a brutal assessment of an actor's relevance.
It is, and the economic consequences of this attitude are framed as nothing short of catastrophic. The source brings up Snow White and Rachel Zegler. This is probably the most high-profile example of this phenomenon in the last few years.
Oh, for sure.
Zegler has been very, very vocal about her views on the original 1937 film.
Right. She called the prince a stalker, said the original movie was dated, that the new one wouldn't be about true love. She was pretty much dismantling the entire legacy of the original animated classic.
He's a weirdo, I believe was the phrase regarding the prince.
Yeah, that was it.
And the source links those comments directly to financial law. He cites a potential $170 million loss for Disney on this project. That's based on production costs and anticipated box office return, or lack thereof.
So his argument is that this idea of hate watching just isn't a reliable revenue stream.
That's a key distinction. For a while, there was this thought in the industry, controversy creates clicks. Any press is good press. Clicks equal ticket.
Right. The outrage machine will still get people in the seats.
The source argues that era is completely over. People are not going to the theater to boo a movie. They're just hitting the unfollow button. They are disengaging entirely. Apathy is the real killer.
The source makes a really biting point there. Something like, you can't put a price on a woman's freedom, but it seems to be $170 million.
That's the get woke, go broke mantra, but weaponized with very specific, very large numbers. The idea is that you cannot insult the core fan base of a classic property. You can't call them weird for liking the original romance and then expect them to show up with their wallets on open. It just breaks the fan con.
So, if that's the wrong way to do it, insulting the fans, telling them to leave, what's the right way? Because the source does offer a counterexample. He's not all doom and gloom. He does point to a success story.
Yes, he does. The Iron Lung counterexample. This is the movie made by the YouTuber Markiplier.
Right, the horror game adaptation. Which is a very different beast from a big budget Disney princess.
True, but the business principle is what he's focused on here. The source contrasts Hollywood's approach with Markiplier's, and Markiplier succeeded, according to the source, because he knew his niche. He targeted a very specific demographic, people who like humor, his games, his creative direction, and he delivered exactly what they wanted.
He wasn't trying to educate them or challenge them.
He wasn't trying to force change upon them. The source criticizes mainstream studios, and he specifically cites statements from executives at places like HBO Max and the BBC for openly admitting that they want to shape culture or ignite conversation.
Right.
The source argues that Markiplier just wanted to make a movie his fans would enjoy, and he quotes Markiplier basically saying, I hope you enjoy it, and if not, catch you next time. There's no moral judgment.
It's the difference between service and lecture. One is, here's a meal I cooked for you, I really hope it's to your taste. And the other is, here's a meal you should eat because it's good for you, and you're a bad person if you don't.
That's a perfect analogy. The source argues that Hollywood fails because they refuse to pick a target demographic, and he specifically singles out men and just give them what they want. The source suggests that if you just gave men a dude slaughtering a load of people or a traditional action movie, you'd print money.
It sounds so simple when you put it that way.
Yeah.
Almost too simple.
But instead, they offer content that deconstructs genre and tries to subvert expectations in ways the audience clearly hates. The source calls this a refusal to focus. They want this idea of mass appeal while simultaneously insulting the mass.
So Markiplier is saying, here's a thing I know you like, and Hollywood is saying, here's a thing you should like, and if you don't, there's something wrong with you.
And that leads to a much deeper critique in the source material regarding who is making. Because if the strategy is so obviously bad for business, why are they doing it? And this brings us to the tick box culture versus meritocracy argument.
This was a pretty heavy section of the transcript. The source goes really, really hard on diversity. And I want to make sure we parse this carefully because he's making a very specific argument about why he thinks it's happening.
It is a critical section, yeah.
Yeah.
The source discusses the BBC and HBO Max again, criticizing what he calls tick box diversity cast. The belief here is that when you cast based on identity rather than merit, the resulting product is clunky, inauthentic, and...
So his argument is that the quality drops because the priority shifts from who's the best actor for this role to who has the right identity for this role.
Yes, that's the baseline argument. But he also argues it actually hurts the very people it's supposed to help. It sets them up for failure in roles they might not be suited for, in stories that are often badly written just to accommodate the casting.
Okay.
But then the source goes a step further and reframes the entire motivation. Usually these calls for representation are framed as, moral progress, inclusion, equity, fairness.
Right. That's the standard narrative we hear all the time. We're making the world a better, more inclusive place.
The source reframes this as pure greed.
Greed. That's a flip I haven't heard very often. How does he get from representation to greed?
The argument is that when these groups, like the 100 Latino creatives mentioned in an open letter that circulated recently, when they demand more roles, it's not a moral crusade in his eyes. It's pure self-interest. It's people demanding jobs that he claims they didn't earn through talent or market demand.
So he sees it as a grift.
He calls it a grift to secure employment under the guise of virtue. The argument is not, we need to see ourselves on screen for the good of society. It's, I need a paycheck, and I can't get one based on my box office draw, so I'll use my identity as leverage.
That is a deeply cynical...
It is. The source views it as rent-seeking behavior. He breaks down John Leguizamo's career again here, implying that his lack of genuine star power is the root cause. The logic is, if you were a huge star, studios would already be hiring you because you make them money. If you have to write an open letter to shame them into hiring you, it's because you don't have the market value on your own.
Brutal market logic. If you were worth it, they'd already be paying you.
It is. And he brings up Halle Berry and Ariana DeBose in this con, too. He critiques Ariana DeBose's acceptance speech, where she mentions she wouldn't be there without being a tick box. Or rather, the source interprets her speech as an admission that she is a diversity hire.
And what about Halle Berry? I mean, she's an icon, an Oscar.
With Halle Berry, the source just mocks the idea that a wealthy, beautiful, Oscar-winning actress is somehow oppressed. He calls that class of person the most privileged class of the most privileged group.
In the most privileged country of the most privileged time. I remember that line?
Exactly. The source finds it genuinely laughable that someone with that level of success, fame, and wealth would complain about being held back by their looks or their race. He argues that their victimhood is manufactured to demand even more free stuff. It's a very cynical view of activism, seeing it entirely as a transactional power play. play.
It completely strips away any possibility of genuine social concern and just replaces it with a model of economic predation.
Correct. The source argues they are preying on the guilt of the studios to extract wealth they couldn't generate at the box. And speaking of predation and competition, this brings us to one of the most complex and, frankly, most controversial arguments in the source. He pivots from economics to biology. We need to talk about the evolutionary psychology angle regarding gender.
This section, I had to rewind this part of the transcript a few times just to make sure I was hearing it right. We need to really break this down because the source spends a lot of time analyzing, of all people, Sydney Sweeney.
The Sydney Sweeney phenomenon, as he calls it. The source observes a very specific trend. The woke side, or the cultural left, whatever you want to call it, seems to attack Sydney Sweeney with a lot of vigor.
Which on the surface seems really weird, right? She's a successful actress. She hasn't really said anything crazy political. She's just existing. She's doing her job. She's in popular shows. Why the hate?
The source calls it friendly fire. He argues that politically, she might not even be conservative. He thinks she's just trying to be neutral and stay out of it.
Yeah.
But the source argues the attacks aren't political at all. He claims they are biological.
He goes full National Geographic on this part.
He really does. He argues that the women attacking Sweeney are doing it out of jealousy because men find her attractive. He posits that in the current attention economy, Sweeney is winning all the male attention, and that makes other women.
Okay, so just jealousy.
But he doesn't stop at jealousy. He pulls out a specific theory on what he calls intersexual competition.
Okay, break that down, because that sounds like a term straight out of a text.
The source differentiates between how men and women have evolved to compete for mate. He argues that men compete via status, resources, and risk. It's overt peacock, showing off what they are capable of. Look at my muscles, look at my car, look at this thing I built.
Right, direct competition. It's, I am better than you, I can lift more, I have more money. It's very straightforward.
Exact. But he argues that women, due to what he calls greater parental investment, meaning pregnancy, nursing, the high biological costs of reproduction, cannot risk physical violence or over-aggression in the same way. It's too dangerous from an evolutionary point.
So they evolved a different strategy.
So they evolved to compete via reputation destruction and indirect hostility.
So basically, gossip, social shunning. The movie Mean Girls isn't just a movie, it's evolutionary science in action.
According to this source, yeah. He argues that the instinct is to target attractive female rivals to eliminate them from the gene. The source posits that the criticism of Sydney Sweeney mocking her acting or her politics or her family or her fans is actually just a biological drive to destroy a genetic rival who has a lower waist-to-hip ratio and facial femininity.
That's a lot to take in. He's basically saying you don't hate her politics, you hate that she's hotter than you, and you're just using politics.
That is the argument in a nutshell. He says they can't attack her looks directly because she is by most standards objectively attractive, so they have to invent these moral reasons to hate her. We hate you because you're mega, or we hate you because you're a bad role model. The source says these are all just lies. They're rationalizations for a very primal biological.
And he extends this war on beauty beyond just actresses, right? He gets into video games. There's a very detailed discussion about an Overwatch voice.
This was the controversy about a new character design, yeah. A voice actress complained that a new character she was voicing was too attractive or too feminine, implying it didn't fit the diversity or body positivity goals she valued. The source reacts to this with extreme hostility.
I remember this. He calls her tears crocodile tears.
He views her emotional reaction as pure manipulation. He argues that this voice actress and others like her want to fill video games with what he calls fogly monsters and androgynous blobs.
Fogly monster. That's a visual that really sticks.
He argues that they are trying to erase idealized beauty, both male and female, because they are insecure about their own appearance. He says developers are creating these ugly aesthetics to appease a small number of insecure activists, while the audience, again, fies men, just wants attractive characters to look at.
And there was a comment about Ozempic chic in there, too.
Yeah, the voice actress apparently criticized a character design for looking like Ozempic chic, implying it looked unnaturally thin, like someone on weight loss drug. The source rebuts this aggressively, saying that the character simply represents a normal human body that consumes the correct amount of calories.
So he's implying that the critics have forgotten what a healthy person even looks like.
Exactly. It's another layer of the don't insult your audience. He argues that by making characters ugly or realistic in a way that isn't aesthetically pleasing, developers are driving away the core demographic that comes to games for fantasy beauty. He points to the failure of Overwatch relative to its initial potential as proof that this ugly strategy just doesn't work.
He also mentions Marvel Rivals in this section, right? The Chinese game.
Yes, that's a key contrast. He argues that the Chinese market understands this dynamic much better. He claims Marvel Rivals is succeeding because they aren't afraid of making hot characters. He suggests they understand that the male gaze, or simply the desire for beauty, is what sells.
So we've got the war on beauty, the war on merit, And now, the war on global economics. Because the source argued that this California bubble mentality is what's really hurting Hollywood internationally.
And this brings us to section 4. The foreigners don't care argument. This is a crucial pivot in the transcript because it moves the discussion away from just the U.S. culture wars to the global marketplace.
Right. Hollywood isn't just selling to California or New York. They're selling to the entire world.
Yeah.
And the source thinks they've completely forgotten.
He argues that Hollywood writers and actors live in this hermetically sealed environment, the California bubble, where they genuinely think everyone on the planet cares about their specific local politics.
Mexican stories. I remember that was the phrase he used regarding the push for representation.
Right. He claims international audiences are totally indifferent to what he calls Mexican stories or specific American diversity. He argues that a viewer in China or Germany or Brazil isn't watching a Hollywood movie to learn about the socioeconomic struggles of specific minority groups in Los Angeles.
They don't have the context. And frankly, why would they have the interest? So what do they want? If they don't want the message, what are they buying a ticket for?
According to the source, they want traditional American masculinity, patriotism, and explosion.
The classic blockbuster formula.
Yeah.
The 80s action movie. The stuff that built the entire Hollywood empire to begin with.
He says the world understands and actually likes masculine American value better than the current effeminate ex. He argues that even if foreign audiences aren't patriotic for America, they understand the concepts of patriotism and masculinity. It's a kind of universal language. Strength, heroism, sacrifice.
It translates. An explosion looks the same in every language.
Yeah.
A hero saving the day is a universal archetype.
Exactly. But they don't understand or care about a tick box lecture on U.S. social dynamics. That is local content being marketed as global, and it's failing.
He uses Kristen Stewart as an example here, doesn't he? She sort of becomes the face of this global disconnect in his argument.
He does. Kristen Stewart made some comments about the industry being a capitalist hell that hates women. The source mocks this relentlessly.
I mean, she's a multi-millionaire movie star. Calling it a capitalist hell seems like a bit of a stretch when you're, on a yacht.
That's the source's entire point. He mocks the disconnect between her immense wealth and her Marxist talking. But he also mocks the idea that she is going to save foreign audiences with her movie. She expressed a desire to make movies outside the U.S. to escape this hell.
And the source basically says, good luck with that.
Essentially. He quotes her saying she's ready to make movies outside the U.S., and his response is, good, go ahead, but don't expect to shove your ideology down their throats either. He argues that without the machine of Hollywood behind her, and without making content that appeals to those so-called masculine values, she will fail there, too.
He calls her built like streaky bacon. That was another one of his insults.
He does. It's another attack on the lack of what he sees as traditional star power or physical imposition that he associates with classic stars. He implies she lacks the meat, both physically and metaphoric, to be a compelling screen presence for a global audience. He contrasts this perceived weakness with the strength required to command attention worldwide.
This theme of narcissism just keeps coming up. Whether it's Kristen Stewart or the activist, the source sees it all as a kind of self-obsession.
Which leads us directly into the 5th section, celebrity narcissism and what he calls performative care. The source uses the analogy of purse puppy act.
Like Paris Hilton in the early 2000s carrying a chihuahua in her purse.
Exactly that. He argues that for these celebrities, a political cause is just a fashion accessory. It's not about the cause itself. It's about how the cause makes you look. It's like a Prada bag or an expensive watch.
You wear it to the gala to show everyone how good.
You wear a pin. He specifically mentions Billie Eilish and Mark Ruffalo wearing red pins on the red carpet. Or you do these nail art protests.
Nail art protest. I think I missed that specific detail. That sounds incredibly small.
He shows an example of someone painting a protest message on their fingernail. The source views this as the ultimate visual virtue. It's doing absolutely nothing to actually solve a problem. It's just paint on your nails. But it allows the celebrity to feel morally superior and get a lot of attention for being brave.
It's all about, look at me being a good person, not look at this important issue.
Precisely. It's validation. He argues they go back to their mansions after the event and do absolutely nothing of substance. And he contrasts this behavior with 2 comedians to show the difference between what he sees as fake and real, Ricky Gervais and Trevor Noah.
And this is a fascinating study in contrast.
Yeah.
Ricky Gervais is the hero in this narrative.
The source praises Gervais's famous Golden Globe speech where he just tore into the room of actors, told them they know nothing about the real world, that they spent less time in school than Greta Thunberg, and that they should just accept their awards, thank their agent, and shut up.
The source must have loved that. Probably played that clip on a loop for a week.
He loves it because Gervais punctured the bubble. He took an axe to the crowd metaphorically. He told them what the audience at home was. You are all hypocrites.
And you contrast that with Trevor Noah.
Right. The source describes Noah as an NPC a non-player character.
That's a gaming term, right? For a character with no agency who just spouts programmed lines over and over.
That's it. He accuses Noah of playing the rebel while actually bowing to his corporate overlords. He argues that Noah just repeats safe, pre-approved opinions that are guaranteed to get applause from the hive mind. He's not speaking truth to power. He's speaking corporate-approved slogans to the powerful to make them feel good about.
So in this view, Gervais is the court jester who actually tells the king he has no clothes, and Noah is the courtier who tells the king his non-existent clothes are beautiful just to get a promotion.
That is a perfect summary of the source's view. And then, surprisingly, we circle back to Bill Maher. The source respects Maher for the same reason he respects Gervais, the willingness to criticize one's own side. He notes that Maher is willing to call out the left when they go too far, whereas most celebrities function as this hive mind that is terrified of stepping.
It's that idea of the filter. The source thinks Hollywood has completely lost its filter.
Yes, and this lack of a filter, this domination of what he calls care-based morality over just is ruining the self. And this brings us to the Star Trek comparison.
As a bit of a Trekkie, this part really caught my ear. He compares the new Starfleet Academy show to classic Deep Space Nine.
He starts by just mocking Starfleet Academy. He describes William Shatner holding a bowl of fiber, referencing a commercial, as a symbol of how far the franchise has fallen. From Captain Kirk, the ultimate masculine hero, to a fiber supplement.
A pretty steep decline.
But the deeper point he's making is about morality.
He talks about Sisko, Space Nine. Captain Sisko.
Captain Sisko, yeah. And the context implies he's thinking of episodes like In the Pale Moonlight. The source argues that in classic Trek, specifically in the war stories you saw in DS9, characters made really hard choices that were ultimately for an objectively moral good.
Like doing a bad thing for a good reason. The classic trolley problem on a galactic scale.
Is it worth killing one person to save 5 million people? The source argues that Sisko's decisions they were about order, survival, and the objective good of the Federation. He contrasts this with modern writing, which he claims uses a care-based morality.
Okay, what's the difference
In the source's view, care-based morality focuses on feelings, on not offending anyone, on avoiding harm at all costs. And he argues that this type of morality completely fails under pressure, especially in a war. You can't fight a war with care-based morality. You need justice.
So his argument is that modern writers are trying to write these epic war stories, but they only understand the language of feelings and safety, so the stories just fall.
That is the argument. He says modern writing misunderstands morality and tries to deconstruct heroes instead of just letting them be heroes. It replaces the hard-edged, necessary decisions of a character like Sisko with the whining and emotional regulation of modern characters. They spend more time talking about their trauma than actually winning the war.
And it all comes back to that central thesis we started with. Hollywood has forgotten how to be strong. In his view, it's become weak, narcissistic, and obsessed with feelings over facts, or even over good stories.
And that leads to the source's ultimate conclusion, what he calls the death.
It sounds bleak. The death spiral. Not much hope there.
The source believes Hollywood is in an irreversible death spiral caused by this profound refusal to listen to the customer. The customer wants escapism, beauty, heroism, and what he calls mass. And Hollywood keeps serving them lectures, ugly deconstructions, and identity politics.
And the solution he proposes?
A contractual requirement for actors to shut up. The source suggests, and it's hard to tell if he's being satirical, but maybe not, that studios need to actively filter out the activists from the hiring. They need to stop hiring people who clearly hate the audience.
Return to being meat.
Return to making entertainment that respects the audience's desire for escapism rather than constantly challenging their morality. The source argues that unless Hollywood can do this, that unfollow button will just keep getting hit until there is no industry left to save.
It's a scorched earth take, right to the very end. So let's unpack the implications of this, because there is a lot here to think about.
There is a whole lot.
If the source is correct, and again, we're just reporting the argument here. If he's right that the silent majority of the audience simply wants escapism, traditional beauty, and non-political heroes, can Hollywood even pivot back at this point?
That is the big question, isn't it?
I mean, has the industry fundamentally changed its workforce? The writers, the casting directors, the executives, the actors themselves, to the point where they are incapable of producing non-political content, even if they wanted to.
That is the terrifying variable for the studios. If the DNA of the workforce has changed so completely, can the organism ever return to its form? Or is it a new now, one that is completely maladapted to the environment of the global box office?
A species destined for extinction.
According to this source, Disparu, unless they learn, finally, to shut up.
Well, on that cheerful note, I think we are going to wrap up this deep dive. It's been a heavy one for sure. Lots of sharp elbows and harsh truth, or at least what one creator sees as harsh truth.
Indeed. It forces you to look at entertainment not just as art, but as a brutal marketplace of ideas and primal...
Thanks for listening. Let us know what you think, but maybe don't tell us to shut up just yet. We'll see you in the next Deep Dive.